I want to share with you my multiverse and the way in which, even though I'm sitting here recording this conversation right now, I am also sitting in my first college course in a decade. The first time that I went through college, it didn't go so well. So I have this very intense need to prove that I belong in a master's program at a prestigious university. I've done all of my coursework. I've prepped for today. I have notes and notes about the material. And finally, Dr. Hames walks into the classroom. We get started with our coursework. I've got my notes. I'm so ready. And then he blindsides me when he asks about my history. Where do I come from? Who am I? So after all of this legwork, I'm sitting mid-sentence with my mouth wide open. Well, Dr. Hames, you see, I grew up in like a rural. I'm stuttering. I'm stumbling, and he just very quietly and very patiently, in his Dr. Hames way, said, "Working class." Intellectually, I think, yeah, sure. But I say out loud, it was kind of hard for my mom to hold down work. Things were kind of, he interrupts me softly, calmly. Maybe unemployed or underemployed working class. It's okay. You can say it, he says to me. You can say working class. So I say working class. And I start to name my experience as a working class experience. I start to read my experience on the pages of the materials that we are given through our coursework. And I start to understand the history of the working class, the future of the working class. And I start to understand my piece of the working class, situated within many experiences of the working class. And at that very same moment, I am 2 years in the future, listening to a podcast inside DePaul's library. Ruby Sales says she gathers this sense among white folks that other white folks aren't worth redemption. That hits me. And it knocks me 6 years prior to Seattle, where I'm walking into a seed facilitator training for the third day. I've known these people for just under 3 days, and I am weeping among 3 of them while we talk about our roles as educators or anti-racist educators. I'm weeping with these semi-strangers because I've given voice to something that I always felt but never said out loud. This sense that I have that in predominantly white spaces, I feel that I have a responsibility to model modes of whiteness that are rooted in accompaniment, walking hand in hand with other white folks. I'm also crying because I'm 10 years earlier, a decade before I ever learned anything about seed. And I'm arguing with my friend B. Now, we had been working on comedy for a very long time together, and yet again, a joke that I wrote, she wasn't happy with it. I struck a chord. She insists that I use the name of an actual gospel singer in my joke. Now I tell her, now listen, the name of the musician isn't central to the sketch. There's no purpose in that. She lets me know that she disagrees, and that in this moment, as a Black woman, she's really disappointed to not be heard and to not feel seen, especially on the topic of the role of gospel music in society. I continue to press her. She relents. I feel vindicated. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. And simultaneously, I'm walking into my first seed meeting. Now, at this point, this is all happening at the same time. This is the multiverse. So when doesn't matter. Because as I walk into this meeting, really excited to listen and learn and become a good ally, I'm met with warm smiles and happy conversation happening among cross-cultural colleagues while they nosh on some food that's been laid out at the table. Kirk, another very warm presence in my life, greets me the same way that he greets everyone. How are you doing? But I'm no fool. I know that the real work is coming. So we sit down in this circle and I think to myself, yep, here we go. This is it. Now's when I become a good ally. And Kirk, lays out some ground rules for good seating, and he pulls up that first slide, and that first slide says, name stories. So again, I'm sort of gobsmacked. Still, I'm gobsmacked. I'm caught off guard. Like, what is interesting about my name? But the more that I think about it, the more my name story starts to come into focus, and I share it and I listen to other stories. And after all of this is over, Kirk comes over and he shares with me the heart of this exercise, which is just that. There is this invisibility that exists in this world for some people. There are different ways in which so many people are invisible, and there are different ways in which so many people are not invisible. They're very visible. And when that kind of invisibility persists, people can start to feel like they don't have stories, that stories are something that you consume from someone else who is different. And these name stories, built into the seed process, are part of a storytelling that it permits everyone to tell their story, so that they can maybe find a mirror, that see pieces of themselves reflected back, or find a window. They get to peer into somebody else's existence. It's not the same as living that experience, but it is a way to understand a little bit of it. So I start to realize that I have a story. It's one story situated among many stories, and I start to get a glimpse into human complexity. That's when Stacy, from across space and time, holds up this invisible ball of twine and looks at me and says, "It's complex. Let it be complex." And all of these things are constantly happening at the very same time. My earliest memories of my childhood are tied to my furthest memories from my future. And there's no DeLorean. I can't go back in time. Let's say I used to think, if I can just go back in time, I could fix my problems and then I would have it better. There's a genuine thought that I had when I was young. If I could just, my brain would chew on the paradox. I would think to myself, well, if time travel ever existed, then time travel would exist now. And this is like 9-year-old JJ. This is 9-year-old me trying to figure out the paradox of time travel because I just wanted things to be better for me. But there isn't a time machine. Not in that sense. In the philosophical sense, everything that has ever happened and everything that is going to happen is contingent on everything that is happening. And I may not be able to jump into a time machine and go back and apologize to B for my incredibly misguided sense of needing to be right. But every single day, I get a chance to do better.